American fans and teams on Cloud 9 after some entertaining wins in Week 9. Impressive rallies and late game heroics. Hang on to your hats and helmets, folks, because things are really just beginning to heat up around here. Hello and welcome inside the American studios for a brand new episode of All American. I'm your host, Morgan Huber. We will preview and look ahead to everything that you need to know about Week 10 of the American college football season. Plus, Army football head coach Jeff Monken will join the show here coming up. But first, we start with the biggest news out of the college football playoff from Tuesday night, unveiling their first rankings of the year. One loss, Tulane at number 24, ahead of undefeated Air Force at 25. A little bit of a differing of opinions between AP poll voters, but a great nod from the committee and for the American Conference as the Green Wave are officially in the driver's seat for that New Year's 6 bowl spot. And with that, we now welcome in our college football analyst, Taylor McHargue. Taylor, we've been talking about this potential scenario for weeks. What was your initial reaction when the news finally came out last night?
I thought the committee got this right because they're factoring in Air Force's strength of schedule, which sits at 100, and Tulane on the other side is getting the benefit of the doubt and a little bit of credit for having played Ole Miss earlier in the season, especially with their backup quarterback in the game. And now, Morgan, like you said, Tulane in the driver's seat through the rest of the season. If you look at who Tulane has through the rest of the schedule, the couple key matchups, and then especially if they were to reach the conference championship and get a win there, I don't see a way with Air Force's strength of schedule that they would leapfrog Tulane, again, assuming that both teams were to win out.
We will dive deeper into the Green Wave here coming up. But first, let's take a look at the biggest headlines of what happened here in Week 9 of the American football season. The Heart Attack Cats, Memphis, beating North Texas 45-42. It was a thriller, that touchdown with 12 seconds left, giving Memphis the win. And for UTSA, a team undefeated right now in the American standings, they're running a familiar road. Their 12th straight regular season conference win for UTSA as they defeated East Carolina 41-27 at home. And Tulane, the high tide tension, another thriller for them, surviving 30-28 over Rice. It was their 8th straight road win for the Green Wave, the 3rd longest active streak in the nation, and it's been back-to-back weeks of one-score games for Tulane. Let's hear from head coach Willie Fritz on his potential solution to some of these second-half struggles that they're having.
The last 3 games, I think we've been outscored 42-14 in the third quarter. So we're looking at doing some things differently coming out at halftime and some things I've done in the past at other places. More of a real warm-up like you do before the game. I was talking to the guys about John Wooden. So going, who the hell's John Wooden? You know who John Wooden is, right? One of the greatest coaches in the history of coaching, regardless of the sport. But he'd come out in the second half and he'd do a real warm-up when they came out of the locker room, and he was the only coach who did that for decades, and he'd always jump on everybody beginning of the second half. And so we're looking at doing a few different things. So.
We know who John Wooden is. Taylor, when you listen to what Coach Fritz has to say, do you believe that something like this can really make a difference?
I think you got to try something, right? Because it's been clear back-to-back weeks. He talked about being outscored in the third quarter. It's back-to-back weeks where they almost give up 20-point leads. I think you also have to give credit on the other side to North Texas 2 weeks ago and against Rice this past week, where especially for Rice, it looked like they came out a little bit skittish, nervous. I'm not sure what exactly it was, but they settled in, found a rhythm, and made it a game late in the third and fourth quarter. But for Tulane, you have to figure out some way to create that sense of urgency coming out of half, which clearly, to Coach Fritz's point, they have lacked, specifically in the third quarter. They've been good enough in both of these last 2 weeks to hold on and come out with wins. But at some point, if you can't figure out a way to get that fast start in the third quarter, they will drop a game sometime in the month of November, and that's what he's trying to solve for.
It really all starts with their quarterback, Michael Pratt, always being able to find a way no matter what the situation is. And now that he's played in 75% of games here this season, he officially qualifies for the NCAA stats. The most impressive one to me, the passing efficiency. He ranks 3rd nationally behind 2 pretty solid quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels at LSU and J.J. McCarthy at Michigan. Also 8th in the nation in yards per pass attempt, nearly with 10. And completion percentage, 9th in the country. And really, The quarterback for Tulane, Michael Pratt, continues to surge. He may be without one of his top targets here this week. Jaquan Jackson left that Rice game in the second quarter, currently in concussion protocol. Coach Fritz said he anticipates Jackson can play on Saturday, but they won't know until later in the week. And Taylor, with Tulane, they have East Carolina this weekend, a team that has been struggling 1-7. Who do you have here winning this one?
Yeah, well, East Carolina played a lot better last week on the road at UTSA. All that being said, I'm still going with Tulane. I think some of the things that East Carolina is struggling with, specifically downfield passing, I think Tulane will exploit that. We showed it just a second ago at how efficient Michael Pratt is. Even though this is on the road, I still like Tulane to win this game.
Well, as we take a look at the conference standings, Tulane continues to stay on top here, number 24 in those CFP rankings and 4-0 in the conference with SMU and UTSA. We've got Florida Atlantic and Memphis there with one conference loss. Navy, South Florida, and Rice at 2-2. And the Rice Owls, they continue their grueling stretch from the Green Wave last week. Now they turn their attention and host SMU. This is a team, the Mustangs, playing complementary football. They're number one in scoring offense and number one in scoring defense in the American. Really on full display, Taylor, in their 69-10 win over Tulsa in the last two games. This is a team that's beating their opponents by nearly 55 points a game. Is Rice a threat at all to the Mustangs' dominance?
Well, I think what's different about Rice from what you've seen the last few weeks from opponents that SMU has played is Rice's ability to score the football. They're one of the top offenses in the conference, and especially having to go on the road to play that game in Houston, I think that certainly benefits Rice. Look, SMU is playing well right now, but they've beaten up on four of the bottom teams in the conference. Rice, I think, will take some of the success from the second half last week against Tulane, try and build on that. The key in this one is pretty obvious. For Rice's defense, there's got to be some bend but don't break, because SMU, high-powered on the offensive side, they're going to have to figure out a way to get some stops. And I think one of the things that impresses me most about SMU and their quarterback Preston Stone is how well they're moving the ball around. They've got 7 receivers with over 200 yards receiving on the year. And I think that just speaks to how well Preston Stone's operating that offense. And for Rice on the other side, they've got to figure out a way, bend but don't break. SMU is going to get some of their downfield shot plays. They're going to create points, but you just can't allow this to turn into a track meet. Ultimately, I do think SMU wins this game. I like SMU in this game on the road. And Morgan, you nailed it. I mean, this is a brutal stretch for Rice, where they had Tulane last week, SMU this week, and then on the road next week at UTSA. And for their bowl hopes, really need to try and pick one of these next two off if they can.
It's homecoming weekend at Rice Stadium. You made your pick. You have the Mustangs over the Rice Owls. And speaking of homecomings, it was a special one for the Memphis quarterback, Seth Hennigan, as he found a way. This guy, as cool, calm, and collected as you could be after, they were up 31-10 at halftime. But the Mean Green rallied. It was Chandler Rogers, quarterback for the Mean Green, that got this offense rolling. Got the go-ahead TD with under a minute to play, but Seth Hennigan orchestrates a drive of his own. It was as masterful as it gets. You play like you practice, and this sure worked out for the Tigers. Here's Coach Silverfield.
Yesterday, meeting with the team, I said, okay, understand that exact 2-minute situation. We actually practiced something very similar that week. Okay, so our situation on Wednesday's practice, which we do a 2-minute situation, was 40 seconds. Offense had 2 timeouts. Okay, now we were down a field goal, so we were down 2 points, so a field goal would have won the game. Obviously, on Saturday, we needed a touchdown to win the game. But instead, we're just 7 yards difference. Other than that, we practiced that exact situation. So you go out there before the 2-minute situation. Okay, hey guys, this is Wednesday's practice, but we're 7 yards further back, and we need a touchdown to win the game. And so our guys are like, okay, cool, let's go play ball. And I think that is something you get with a mature team, a confident team.
6-2 now overall for the Memphis Tigers, with their only 2 losses coming to top 25 teams, number 12 Missouri, number 24 Tulane. Taylor, 4 weeks left here in the regular season. How would you assess the Tigers' chances to get to an American championship game at this point?
Well, I think it all is going to come down in a couple of weeks to their game against SMU, and that's one that both sides have circled right now. I thought it was an impressive win the way that they closed out the game. It was a really disappointing second half by and large for Memphis with the large lead that they built up. They're all over North Texas for the majority of that game. That being said, I thought that may be the most impressive drive in Seth Hennigan's career, that last second drive. And I know, Morgan, you were there and part of the team that was on the call that week. You got to see it firsthand. from my vantage point, again, that looked like maybe the most impressive drive in Seth Hennigan's career, and you just hope that for Memphis that's a springboard into the last month of the season, because again, this is all building, in my opinion, towards that matchup against the Mustangs and SMU. It's very likely that the winner of that game ends up in the conference championship.
Memphis just with that one conference loss to Tulane. Now they have South Florida here this week, 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Taylor, who do you got in this one between the Bulls and the Tigers?
Yeah, it's another matchup for Memphis where they're facing an offense on the other side that can score. South Florida, it's a top 40 offense and that high-powered, fast-tempo offense that Alex Golesh has brought from Tennessee. I think Memphis have to figure out a way, create that emphasis in getting stops, especially in the second half, coming off the second half they just had against North Texas. I think you'll see improvement there. I like Memphis to win this game.
Well, Memphis coming off of a thriller and a high, but on the other side of that matchup, North Texas coming off that heartbreaking loss, and they will look to bounce back here this weekend, a game where we will both be on the call in Denton, Texas, against a familiar opponent. We've got UTSA taking on the Mean Green, and this has become a little bit of a rivalry between these two teams over recent years. They met twice last year in the regular season and Conference USA Championship. The Roadrunners going 2-0 in that one. In 2019, it was really complete dominance by North Texas. 2020, UTSA responding with a dominant win of their own. In 2021, the Mean Green played spoiler. The Roadrunners at that point, final game of the regular season. They were undefeated, ranked in the top 25, but fell 45 to 23. And it's crazy to think all the way back to 2019, the quarterback of the Roadrunners, Frank Harris, started in all of these games. He'll be getting the start, of course, on Saturday. And this is a team, Taylor, where they have been absolutely running away in conference games. They've looked really solid over the past month. What's impressed you about the Roadrunners here as of late?
Well, they're finally getting healthy. We had them a couple weeks ago, and Coach Traylor talked about, look, he's not going to make the excuse, but I can make the excuse for him. They had so many guys banged up in the first part of the season. And the biggest one, obviously, Frank Harris, 0-2 in the games that he missed with the turf toe injury. They're finally getting healthy. I think you're starting to see a more physical play like what we've come to know. And then Trey Moore on the other side, another conference player of the week on the defensive side for their rush in. He's playing fantastic. And so it's all starting to build that momentum, and you're starting to see a UTSA team that's more like what we expected at the first part of the season when they had those they dropped games to Houston and Army. They've built that momentum, playing a lot better. They had a slow start last week against ECU, but built well in the second half and closed that game out strong.
For North Texas, this is a team that they've dropped four of their 5 losses have been one-score games. And for Coach Morris, he said the biggest obstacle for us is just finding a way to win games. How does he get his team over the hump and be able to overcome that?
Well, offense is not the problem right now. They're scoring plenty of points, especially since they made the change to Chandler Rogers at the quarterback spot and then Jamori Macklin on the outside at receiver. That's a dynamic group. They score points. They score early and often. They've got to figure out a way to get stops. And I think that's the key in this game, trying to steal a possession or two, trying to get some pressure on Frank Harris, because that's a guy, for all the wonderful things Frank Harris has done in his career, he has had some turnover issues in the first half, a couple weeks ago against FAU and last week against East Carolina. So for North Texas, playing at home, you want this to be more like a track meet. You want this to be back and forth because you have confidence in your offense that you can score every possession. They've got to figure out a way to get some stops on the other side against UTSA in this Frank Harris-led offense.
Roderick Burns with 3 touchdowns last week, passed that 2,000-yard mark for his entire career. He's looking good. So North Texas, they certainly have some threats. For the Mean Green to win this game, what has to happen?
It goes back to the defensive side, because I don't think we have any concerns about North Texas' ability to score points. They have got to figure out a way to make Frank Harris uncomfortable. You have to get some pressure on him, make him move around some. And then on the other side, on the offensive side, if there is one concern, it's blocking Trey Moore. He's done such a nice job disrupting, has 12 sacks already to this point in the season. We just turned the calendar to November. He's already got 12 sacks, which is unbelievable. They've got to figure out a way, whether that's leaving a tight end in, if that's bringing the back in and chipping, they've got to slow down Trey Moore off the outside.
ESPN Plus, 3 p.m. Eastern. Taylor and I on the call alongside Richard Cross, one you are not going to want to miss. And there's plenty of other games also on the Week 10 slate that are available to you on ESPN Plus. One big one, FAU UAB. We've got a Tom Herman versus Trent Dilfer at Protective Stadium. The Blazers coming off a bye. Meanwhile, the Owls coming off a 38-16 win over Charlotte. Taylor, what intrigues you here about this matchup?
I think it's interesting for FAU that they're still sitting 4-4 overall, but 3-1 in conference. And for all the noise we've talked about the top of this conference, FAU still controls their own destiny, and that's a team that I think the bare minimum for them and the goal that they've set is to get to 6 wins. This is obviously a key game, and UAB, we know how well they play at home. I think that's going to be a really challenging matchup for FAU. I think a game that they probably should win, but FAU, again, having to play at UAB, it should be a good game.
The stakes continue to get higher, and things are continuing to get really interesting around here, Taylor. We're excited to have you back next week to break it all down, and I'll see you in Denton.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan.
Tell me if you've heard this one before. An American team with fight, tradition, prestige, and a will to finish the mission of a powerful future. We think they'll fit in just fine.
The Black Knights of Army.
There's nothing more American than Army football.
Now we're joined by the head coach of Army football, Jeff Monken. Coach, first off, officially welcome to the American. Looking forward to having you all join the conference for the 2024 season. We saw the extremely positive response on social media externally, but how was the news received inside the walls at Army when you told the team?
Our guys that are going to be coming back next year are certainly excited about that. Obviously, we've got a season going on right now and other fish to fry, as they say, but our guys that are going to be here, our young players, the junior class and below, are really excited about the opportunity to join a great league.
Speaking of opportunities, in terms of exposure, competition, recruiting, what does the American really provide you and your program?
Just the exposure. I think having the rivalries that will be developed as we go through the years, and our fans will get excited about it. Certainly, I think that the national recruiting brand that we have, we recruit all 50 states, and we actually have 39 different states represented on our roster right now this year. So as I said in the video, nothing more American than that. So our players are excited about being able to travel and play at all the different venues that make up the American Conference. And it's tremendous universities. It's super competitive, and it's going to be a real challenge for us, but we're excited for the opportunity.
You mentioned the word rivalries. There's no bigger rivalry in college football than Army and Navy. And while this will be a non-conference game moving forward, what impact does it have on the rivalry being in the same conference?
Oh, I'm not really sure. I'm going to be interested to see if it changes any part of it at all. It's such an incredible game. There's an atmosphere that's like no other. The intensity on that day is greater than any sporting event, any competition that I've ever been a part of, and it's like that every single year. It never changes. So it's a great game, and I'm glad that we're able to keep that date as just the Army Navy game, and play the rest of the conference as our conference games. It'll be interesting because we don't always have a lot of common opponents. So being an independent and Navy being in the American Athletic Conference over the years, there hasn't been a lot of crossover. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects maybe our scouting of each other.
I had my opportunity to attend my first one back in 2019. The pageantry, the tradition, there's nothing like it. Also at West Point, too, the game day experience, certainly very special. Certainly American fans are going to want to make the trip and see their teams play Army in 2024 and beyond. What can they expect of the game day experience in West Point?
Every American should visit West Point. It's an incredible place. We get millions of visitors every year. I believe this is the nation's most beautiful college campus. Certainly, perhaps the most historic. All of the Revolutionary War history that you're able to see here and to tour, and and to see this incredible campus and the buildings and the scenery and our cadets. There's nothing that makes this campus and this institution more special than our cadets, and they're what America has to offer, the very best of what America has to offer, and young men and women that have made a pledge to serve our nation. So we're going to be really proud to show it off to everybody in the conference.
It's a place that certainly has maintained tradition, but since you took over this job 10 years ago, how has your role as head coach at Army West Point evolved?
Well, one of the reasons I took this job was to have an opportunity to influence these young men and women that will serve our nation in the Army, to influence soldiers and their families. And I know that my leadership goes well beyond our locker room, and that's an incredible sense of responsibility, and really was an attraction to this job, and it continues to be a daily motivation for me to motivate and inspire these young men and women through my leadership to serve our nation and to be an inspiration to soldiers.
Coach, thank you for the time today, and best of luck. You have part 1 of the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy here this week. We appreciate you taking the time here during Air Force Week to join us.
Got to do it. Beat Air Force and beat Navy.
Thanks, Coach.
Memphis takes the lead with 2.5 minutes to go.
The hottest team in the nation is the #1 overall seed here in the American Women's Soccer Championship. The Memphis Tigers are currently riding a 12-game win streak, the longest active win streak in the country, and they also picked up 6 of the major honors here for our American Women's Soccer Major Awards, and right now we've got an all-women's soccer edition of America's Best. Memphis forward Maya Jones was unanimously selected as the Offensive Player of the Year. The senior led the conference in points, shots, and assists. She finished the season with 9 goals and 10 assists for a total of 28 points. Her 10 assists were 4 more than any other player in the conference. The junior Tiger Momo Nakal picked up the honors for Midfielder of the Year. This season, Nakal totaled 4 assists and 5 goals, and 3 of those 5 goals were game winners. There was a tie for Defensive Player of the Year. First up, Memphis senior Haley Spray led the Tigers defense to #1 in the nation in goals against average. The Tigers finished the regular season with 12 shutouts, including 8 of their 9 conference games. In East Carolina, sophomore Jasmine Ferguson, who was named the Americans Rookie of the Year last season, led the Pirate defense to 4 shutouts in conference play and held opponents to less than a goal per game. In the net for the Tigers, Kylie Bierman earned the Goalkeeper of the Year honors. In 14 games, she allowed just 4 goals. The junior also finished #1 in the American and 9th in the country for save percentage. We had another tie, this one for Rookie of the Year. Memphis forward Anna Hauer finished the year with 7 goals and 3 assists for the Tigers. The freshman had a stretch where she recorded the game-winning goal in 3 of 4 matches. And Nia Rose for SMU had a monster rookie season. She finished 2nd in the American with 9 goals and also tallied an assist. Rose finished the regular season 3rd in the American with 19 points. And finally, in Brooks Monaghan's 24th season at the helm of Memphis, the head coach and his staff guided the #9 nationally ranked Tigers to a 15-1 overall record and a perfect 9-0 record in conference play, and Memphis earned the Coaching Staff of the Year honors. The Memphis Tigers keep their season rolling in the semifinals. You can catch both of those matches Thursday night on ESPN+. And tonight, the men's soccer regular season concludes. SMU hosting Temple. You're going to want to keep your eye on that one. With a win or a tie, the Mustangs will be hosting the American Men's Championship. And finally, basketball. We are just days away from the start of a brand new season, and to get you set for tip-off, Florida Atlantic, a Final Four team a season ago, we've got a special premiere of an all-access episode, Run It Back. You're not going to want to miss that on Sunday on ESPNU. And with the start of a brand new basketball season, we're certainly going to have all of the top plays and highlights for you starting next week. But this week, it's American football that dominates top plays as we take a look at the best action from Week 9. We start in San Antonio, East Carolina at UTSA. Tied up 17 early in the second quarter. And quarterback Frank Harris finds his favorite target, Joshua Cephas, as he takes off down the sideline. and Cephas says, "See you later." This TD goes down as the longest pass play in program history, and it broke the game open for the Roadrunners as they rolled on to a 41-27 homecoming victory. At number 4, we head to the fourth quarter in Charlotte. The 49ers hosting Florida Atlantic. A tip ball, and C.J. Burton with the one-handed interception for Charlotte. Burton picks up his first career interception and does it with style points. We've got more from this game coming up, but first we head to the pitch at number 3 for women's soccer. Nia Rose with a one-touch over the head of a mean green defender and strikes to find the right corner for goal number 2 of the night for Nia Rose, and SMU goes on to win 3-1. At number 2, we've got more from the Owls and 49ers. Daniel Richardson, quarterback, slings this one toward the end zone, looking for his top target, LaJohntay Wester. He completes the catch, but they originally ruled this one out of bounds. No good, but they take another look. We've got every angle imaginable here. You can see his left toe comes down, and they take a closer look at this heel, completely in bounds, no question about it. This one is a touchdown for Florida Atlantic. The call is reversed, and Wester picks up 6 to add to the Owls' lead. They go on to win big, 38-16. Our top play this week comes from Memphis at North Texas. The Mean Green looking to add to this impressive second-half rally. Roderick Burns in space, burns up the sideline and soars for the pylon. He gets there. Touchdown number 3 of the day for Burns. Watch him, he plants his foot at the 3 and looks like Superman out there. Get this man a cape. North Texas, though, falls just short, 45-42. Got a bonus play, and it's a real treat. During Tulane's Hoops Hullabaloo Dunk Contest, the Tulane freshman Mir Panoam had some impressive tricks. First slammed one over his head coach, Ron Hunter, and he finishes off the show throwing one down over 4 of his teammates. Panoam cleared for liftoff, and he gets everyone on their feet, including these judges. 10s all around for Panoam. Remember, if you ever see a top play happen live, you can always let us know on social media using the hashtag #AmericanTopPlays and let us know at American_Conf. This Saturday, we've got all 14 American football teams in action, a full day of football plus basketball starting on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. All 28 of our American basketball teams. It's going to be an exciting week. We will bring you all the highlights and analysis next week on a brand new episode of All American. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next Wednesday.